Hello there. I'm Danielle Ralston. I am the founder and head coach here at ND Out Loud. What is ND Out Loud? ND Out Loud is a team of neurodivergent coaches. We are neurodivergent, every single one of us. TBIs, PTSD, ADHD, autism, ADHD, and so much more. Bipolar disorder, all of the things. We also have a passion for supporting others like us, so you don't have to struggle like we did in our past. We have all taken trainings and certifications and all of that so that we can support you in living a better life and upgrading all of the things that are frustrating about your life. What is this session going to give you? This session is going to give you actionable tips. So yes, we're going to talk about our programs and all of the things that we offer, but I want you to walk away with something actionable for something that is overwhelming, frustrating, or just plain annoying you right now in your life. Or if you're a parent or a spouse of someone with neurodivergence, to help them as well. I want you to walk away with something today. So please sign up today for a free call. We can learn more about each other. Hello. This is Danielle and Tim with ND Visionary Partners, ND Out Loud, ND Hive. And we are talking about a subject because we have a live situation as in going on right now. I'm waiting to hear from a client who is autistic and works for a major. And when I say major, this is one of the big companies here in the US. And this is a story of not getting it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I would harp on the thing that, I sound like a broken record in saying this, and it's point two on my talking points that I came up with for this discussion in regards to the American with Disabilities Act. So a couple of things I want to talk about that. So we've recently had a national conversation, as we know, of something that I encourage anyone to watch, that if you have Apple TV, you need to watch the documentary called Deaf President Now. And as a deaf person myself, it was something that really resonated with me when I watched this. And so Deaf President Now happened in 1988. And basically, it was a big movement in which they really pushed the current administration of Gallaudet University to hire a deaf president for the university for the first time in its history. And the administration was like, no, the hearing person's more qualified and this and that, which was definitely not the case. And so, a lot of back and forth with that. But it included a march in which they actually went all the way over to the Capitol building and back in 88. And basically, it was a big movement in which they really pushed the current administration of Gallaudet University to hire a deaf president. And then lo and behold, 2 years later, ADA was passed. Because when it became like a national story, then the national story became around the idea that we needed to have some type of legal protection for people with disabilities, and that America would be on the forefront in the whole world if they would to make this case. And America is. There are a lot of other countries in the world that have no disability rights at all. So I consider it a privilege that we have it here in the United States. But at the same time, I think even we're talking that was passed in 1990. And we're now in 2025, and there's still a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings about ADA and what is required under it.
I think what is always so frustrating, I'm trying to think of nice words to say, for me as somebody with a disability, and I have both visible and invisible disabilities. I've had invisible disabilities my whole life. I now have a visible disability. I can't believe how few places for my visible disability, which is being in a wheelchair, are still not compliant. New buildings. I understand that the grandfathered in of old historic buildings. I'm from New York, so I very much understand that. Some of those buildings have no place to put an elevator. They can't put ramps in easily, things like that. I get that. Okay, understood. But new buildings that don't have the ability to push a button to open a door or the automatic doors. This is something I could put into my house for less than $200.
Yeah.
These aren't big things. So we have that piece. And then as a disability advocate, I advocate for my clients all the time. I help them write accommodations. And this particular client disclosed that he was autistic before he was even hired. And his previous manager, all of that has never been a problem. He's worked there for quite a few years and it's never been a problem. But now he has a new manager.
I've heard the story many times.
I mean, I hate how many times I have to tell the story over and over and over. This is ridiculous. It's 2025. We are, okay, I don't remember how many years it is since 1990. I'm not going to even try to do the math, but that is too many years for us to still be talking about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and then, the next point that I'm making, which I sound like a broken record with this, is that we are in a labor shortage. We are in a very, very tight talent market. And it's only going to get worse over the next 6 years or 5 years. And at that point, like it's going to be in a place in which employers are really going to be forced to do better in the space because they have no choice. Now employers seem to think that things are okay, but they're now looking proactively and knowing that they need to build their talent base right now and build that retention of that talent base right now, because very soon there is going to be a shortage of epic proportions. And so now is the time that they need to start getting better in the space. And now, like we're talking about a huge employer, let me tell you about another huge employer, one of the largest retail companies in the world. I just heard that yesterday, had a deaf employee here in my city, and deaf employee has been working there for several years, I think 6 years, I believe, working for this company. And he went up to his supervisor and asked the supervisor if he could have some time off. And there seemed to be an understanding, and he took a few days off. There was a misunderstanding to the point that the employer thought that he was quitting, and when he came back after his vacation, he didn't have a job because there was a miscommunication. Because here's a deaf employee, he's been working there 6 years, he's not a stranger, and they didn't even set up a communication system that requires clear communication, and he lost his job as a result. So,
that's one of the first things we did here, and we are a tiny company. When I hired Tim and brought Tim on, there were 3 of us. And we made sure our communication system was something we did immediately. Of course, for those that don't remember, Tim is my brother, and I understand how this works, and it's something that was top of mind. But I do that for every employee. Yeah. I have every employee on my staff is disabled in some way, some of us multiple ways. And I make sure that we have what they need for communication, whatever that is. This is basic human decency, not just ADA law.
Yeah, it's interesting because like we're talking, there's a point here that I made, and I got this quote from the internet. Like when we're talking about like ADA, that's the fact that it's a legal requirement. We're going to talk about the legality behind it at some point in this conversation, but it's simply the right thing to do to be inclusive in your company. And that word inclusivity is kind of a bad word these days. But let me just say this: inclusion isn't a buzzword. It should be a baseline.
Absolutely, because inclusion isn't about providing a deaf employee with a communication system. It's not about providing a neurodivergent employee flexible work hours or anything like that. Inclusion is allowing for getting the best possible work product out of your employees. End of story. That's all inclusion is getting productivity out of your employees. Yeah. Isn't that the point of having a business, is making money, and your employees are the back that the money is made on, not your brilliant idea, because you aren't the one producing any product, any service or anything. Your employees are. Don't you want to optimize your employees? You maintain your work lines and your machines in your company because you know that they have to be optimized to work at their best. So do humans.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm going to go over some stats here. 1 in 4 Americans have a disability, according to the CDC. 1 in 4. So if you have 20 employees that work for you.
Yep, 5 of them. But disability in general is underreported as well. So that number.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's my next one. Employees who report to their employers, less than 42%. report that they have a disability. And that includes visible disabilities. I had a conversation with somebody 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, who is full-time in a wheelchair. I am a hybrid wheelchair user. I use a wheelchair when I need it and don't when I don't. She is full-time wheelchair users. Do you know that that's not on her file at the company she works for?
Mm.
Because if she disclosed that it was a full-time need and that she needed accommodations because of it, she probably wouldn't have gotten the job. That was the feeling she had.
So she's in a
She's
place of,
visibly in a wheelchair
yeah.
all of
So
the time. And
so
it's
she's
not in her
probably in
file
a
anymore.
place of like being in a stressor of thinking that the other two is going to drop at any time in regards to, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine.
Well, this is a safety issue. Why is this a safety issue? And her and I had this conversation. If it's not in the company files, if something ever happens in the building and the building collapses or there's a fire or something like that, did you know that a company has to have that in their fire protocol for rescue, that they have an employee that can't walk without a wheelchair?
So, yeah, and that should be a baseline as well.
It- like why is this even I don't understand why it's a discussion. Now the other parts that I want to bring up is 70% of job seekers won't apply to a company that has a bad reputation when it comes to accessibility and accountability.
Yeah. So
76% of people won't apply.
how much qualified talent are they missing out on?
Huge amounts, especially in the tech sector, because you want to know what, anybody in a tech sector company, 95% of your employees, a minimum of 95% of your employees have invisible disabilities.
Oh
And
yeah.
I can stand on that because I've worked in that sector. I come from that sector. And let me tell you, I go to a conference with 5,000 people, and I think there were maybe one or two sales guys who did not have a disability out of 5,000 people. So don't tell me that, especially in the neurodivergent world, because we tend to like tech jobs and data jobs and things like that, this is a big deal. So if 76%, whatever that was, won't work for you because you have a bad reputation and 100% of your employees have invisible disabilities, you're getting the worst of the worst, not the best of the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have any other stats? Because if not, then I'll bring up. Okay. So,
So employees who do receive accommodations without barriers are 75% more likely to have long-term loyalty to a company.
yeah, we're talking before about setting up policies over the next few years, given the fact that we're going to have a cliff that we're going to fall off of in about 5 years from now when it comes to labor market and
Mm-hmm.
availability of talent. It's already tight now, but 5 years from now, it's going to be impossibly tight. And so, like, what can you do to retain your employees? There you go, right there.
So, what other points do you have to share? Because I want to make sure that at the end of this, we share some tips and tricks for employers and employees of how to deal with when there is an issue. Because I think
Yeah.
people haven't learned what they're supposed to be doing when it comes to ADA law.
Yeah. So, point number one is ADA is a law. So, it's not like a guideline, just, something that you might want to follow loosely. It is a law to the point that employees that feel that they've been mistreated because of their disability have the right to sue you as an employer. And the legal risk right now is rising. Even in this current administration that we're in, it is still rising. Enforcement is increasing. The Department of Justice and the EEOC has stepped up enforcement and litigation of ADA violations, especially around digital accessibility and workplace accommodations. So lawsuits are expensive. I can't imagine how expensive they are. ADA-related lawsuits can cost employers six figures or more in legal fees, damages, and reputational harm. Digital accessibility lawsuits are surging with remote work and hybrid models. Inaccessible website apps or internal systems are now a legal liability.
Mm-hmm. So even if you happen to be, if you're a small business owner, like you're a single owner business freelancer, if your website isn't ADA compliant, do you know you could get sued for up to six figures?
Yeah, absolutely. But on the flip side, if you actually meet all the requirements for an ADA acceptable website, you actually can get tax credits back.
Major tax credits. So I'm not going to go into what I get back because my website is compliant, and my website isn't even 100% compliant. I have two things I'm missing. And because the platform of Squarespace doesn't have those things built in, I get like excused from that. But it's not good that Squarespace doesn't even have those things. And I'm well aware of that. But I also can't afford a full custom major website. So I have what I have. But so here's something that I want to make sure that people understand. The ADA will, for free, go after your employer if you aren't getting the accommodations you need.
Yeah. So it's not like a person with disability needs to hire a lawyer and put them on retainer for them to be able to sue you or make sure compliant with the ADA. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that that is said. It is really important that you understand that you don't have to, because financial barriers could be at least a perception here. It's not. The filing with the EEOC is fairly easy. Getting an appointment to talk to somebody at the EEOC is not very easy this time of year. My current client is having a heck of a time getting to the next step, but he's done all of his stuff. So let's talk about what happens. So I'm not going to talk about why this employee has an HR investigation going on. We have the paperwork for it. That is not the issue. That's actually not where we're going with this conversation. I'm going to talk about what HR has done wrong in the investigation process. One, they emailed him on his company email that they locked him out of, and then tried to penalize him for not reaching out to find out that he's locked out of the system.
Yeah.
That's just dumb, but okay. Number two, he gets on a call and he asks for the call to be recorded and or a transcription of it after, because he is autistic and he has a hard time processing. They told him no.
Yeah.
That right there, I looked at ADA law and I was showing my client this. Somebody was able to sue just for that one piece for $160,000 in one.
Yeah. And we're talking about digital accessibility lawsuits are increasing right now. So that's
Number two, he asked for his disability advocate to be on a call with him, which is an outside third-party person that he wants to bring in. They told him no. Guess what they can't do? They can't do that either. Number three, he now has a video call. He must be on video. They haven't let him back in the building to get his personal laptop. So he doesn't have a laptop to do it, and his phone is broken. So he can't do a video call. They're refusing to talk to him. But they won't let him to go get his personal effects from the building either. That violates employment law, not just ADA law. So let's be clear there. And two, they won't let him bring a disability advocate. That is ADA law. So now so that right there is another, I think it was $240,000 somebody sued for that. Yeah. Now, can he add all of these amounts up and get all of the amounts all thrown together in one lawsuit? Probably not. But he has a strong case with the EEOC now, just based on what they haven't done. And we're not talking about the issues he's having at work right now. We haven't even touched those, and there's a bunch of things there. So what could this HR department, and this is a major company who has a third-party HR company doing their HR. That's very common right now.
I'm surprised by that.
I'm not at all, because it's probably owned by this company, but it's a third party outside. So how they can bill for it and expenses and all of that. So, but it's considered a third party outside system. Great. Who cares? But they should be well trained in what ADA law is. Guess what? They aren't. So one, this is an employer issue. They need to be training their HR professionals in ADA law and employment law. Like, come on, people. This is something that every HR professional should have. I have an HR professional that's a client, and she is doing new trainings like every 60 days, 90 days on what all of these laws, what's going on, how to make sure that she's covering for things. Every HR employee should be doing that. Number two, an employer should be training the managers in all of this as well. And this is a company that has no lack of profit.
No. This is crazy. Crazy.
So employers, train your people. End of story. I understand that employers are all about covering their own butts and all of that, and they're going to try to push things. Okay, I get that, because there isn't right, no, but it's a reality. And as an employee for a company, you have rights. You have a lot of rights. Educate yourself, especially if you have a visible or an invisible disability. You should be educating yourself. I think Tim and I should do a series of ADA education here on YouTube over the next few months.
Yeah. Like when we're talking about from the employee perspective and like what we want to do collectively in this conversation and what ND Out Loud and ND Visionary Partners does is to really try to educate both sides of us. So like on the employee side, employer actually ADA compliance supports retention and engagement. So you get better retention, employees with accommodations are more loyal, supporting disabled workers, reduces turnover, and boosts productivity. Mental health is a major ADA issue. The rise of mental health conditions since the pandemic means more workers are covered under ADA and require reasonable accommodations like schedule flexibility and quiet workspaces. So I know we're going off the point a little bit on this, but it's just showing that. So you have the legal side of it, that it's law and that the employers need to follow it, and the employees need to educate themselves on that piece of it and what their rights are. But then there's so many benefits for following it as well.
Again, so what is the cost of not supporting your employees and having correct documentation and compliance things in place? The cost is employees who leave. And we all know, and every business owner knows, that you're losing an employee costs you a minimum of 1 year's salary. Usually it's more like a year to a year and a half of salary to train that new person before they become profitable for you. So $50,000 client employee is costing you $75,000 to have to hire a new one because you didn't want to support them correctly.
Absolutely.
And a decrease in productivity overall for whatever department or job that person's in.
Yeah, for the fact that that employer didn't want to spend $5,000 in a worker accommodation that would help that employee be more productive. And 5,000 is it's extreme. Most accommodations are free or very, very, very low cost.
So I actually went through yesterday because I was in preparation. What was the most expensive accommodation I've helped one of my clients ask for in the last 5 years? You want to know what the most expensive accommodation was?
Tell me.
$150.
Yeah, yeah. Because, like we've talked about in the past with my partnership with a company called Translate Live, they have a communication tool for people with communication barriers, language barriers, someone that's hard of hearing like myself. It's $2,500 for one device, and that would allow for seamless communication back and forth between HR and the employee or employee versus manager. And so like I actually just have an employer just this week purchased 7 of them, and I'm doing an on-site training with them pretty soon. And like they are going to be in a place in which they're going to be able to communicate with their employees better, which is an incredible investment that's going to help them as grow with the company. But like, $2,500 times 7 is not really that much money, given the fact that like the dividends are going to be far, far higher. But yeah, so yeah, you're talking it's not that much money. But the flip side is $75,000 if you don't.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, or the extreme of getting sued by the ADA and it paying $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in to one employee. One employee. And I think my favorite ADA case that has been won recently is somebody who was going through the hiring process, did not get hired. The hiring process was not ADA compliant and won $260,000 from this company and never worked for them.
That is crazy. I don't know what the highest ADA lawsuit is.
Yeah.
$240 million.
I have a client who won $5 million for not being able to take notes at work. $5 million.
Yeah.
And it's a payout over 10 years. So, I mean, it sounds really good and all of that, but it's a total of $5 million, but they're covering her medical insurance for 20 years. Like there's all of these things, but $5 million because their boss wouldn't let them take notes.
Yeah. That's really sad. But like, I know like we're kind of going towards the negative of like you must.
But I think the negative, unfortunately, has to be a focus because too many companies, in this company that we're talking about, and yes, we're not naming them, this company we're talking about is one of the biggest companies, I think, in the world, not just country.
In the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also have a good reputation that they're about to hurt because my client has filed with the EEOC now. And even if nothing comes from it, did you know that when an employee files with the EEOC, that goes on your company record that there's something has been filed, whether it goes anywhere or not, or is founded or not?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's unfortunate and it shouldn't be the case, but I think that when companies get so big and that pretty much become the only game in town, they then have a choice of being one or the other because I've seen that Google and Microsoft, they're really good with treating people with disabilities. No company's perfect, but they're good. And then you have others that we're not going to name that basically had made the choice not to be that. But it's interesting because they have other iterations of that company that actually is pretty good, but this one conglomerate that's under that umbrella is not. Because that's not the first I've heard of cases of discrimination within that particular company.
So how can you overcome this? Hire somebody to come in and train everybody. Do not, and this is, I think, a mistake that a lot of companies have, is they hope that their own HR department knows what they should know. They don't make sure, and they don't verify, and they don't bring in a third party company that their purpose is to train companies on these things. So one, make sure your HR is well trained by outside, because one, and I'm not just saying that because I want you to hire us. Yes, I mean, that would be nice, but the big thing is you need to make sure your HR is trained properly so that they can then train all of the managers shiftly, all the way down to a shift leader. If you are a manufacturing company and you have a shift leader on one line, they should know ADA compliance, at least at a basic level. Companies need to just want to optimize their employees, just like they optimize their production lines, their computers, their software, their websites, all of those things. Employees need that same optimization. It is not really all that hard, because one of our top contracts, and I'm going to be very visible and very open here, was $130,000 paid over 2 years. Somebody paid us $130,000 to come in and train everybody and retrain and make check in, do Q&As with employees and the management team. And we supported them for 2 years. Or you could have one employee sue you for $260,000 and get nothing beneficial out of it. I mean, and that's really what it comes down to, is do we hire somebody to come in and do the training? And yes, I'm not cheap, but I'm also not as expensive as an ADA judgment.
Yeah, I mean, you really have no choice in today's day and age, given the labor shortage that we have now, that there is an incredible talent pool that you can hire and retain. You have an incredible talent pool within your company that you need to retain as well. And like what we're talking about, all the costs, the average cost of $75,000 to have to train a new employee, because you have to get rid of the old employee. Because
that's only if your employee earns $50,000. If your employee earns $200,000, it's going to cost you about $350,000 to hire a new employee.
Yeah, and the numbers only go up. So like investing in us and our incredible team, because it's not just Danielle and myself.
No.
An amazing group of people with talent all across the board that would be part of this.
It worked in a lot of these companies. We have corporate backgrounds. All of us have corporate backgrounds working in labor market intelligence. I work in invisible disability accommodations. We have somebody who is in leadership in operational intelligence, and we have a whole entire team of experts in these areas so that we have everything that a company needs. If you have questions, if you are an employer and you have questions, please reach out, ask a question. You can find us at ndvisionarypartners.com. If you have questions as an employee and you're really struggling and you need support to get the accommodations you need, we also do that. We do that both at our $19.99 a month level. We help our lowest level clients get the help they need through ADA compliance. You don't have to be paying our top level to get that help. We are, even at our lowest level, offering that support to you. And we even offer a couple of free coaching sessions, one-on-one coaching sessions, to really help you dive into that, because this is such an important message to us. If you are someone who is looking for a job and coming up against some accommodation issues, even in your job hunt, please reach out to us. We'll also help you file with the EEOC, because there are documented cases of people getting money for trying to get hired and not getting the accommodations they needed in the hiring process. Please let us know. We have the support you need. We want to support you. This is our passion. This is our mission, to help those with invisible disabilities be seen, be heard, and in a safe way. I hope you have an amazing day today. And if you have any questions, again, reach out.